Welcome to the November 30th Eclipse OpenJ9 community call. As always, please add your name and affiliation to the list of attendees just so we have some idea of who's been joining the calls. And here I'll pause for a minute. We have the agenda before us. You can find it in the planning channel on Slack. But if there's something you want to add to that agenda, either chime in now or tag it into the any other business section and we'll handle it when we get there. We don't have a lightning talk scheduled this week, so if there is one that you'd like to give, please reach out to me and we can get that scheduled. And we will take a look at the recent end user items to see what's come in and what needs an extra focus. Issue with a deadlock with Open Liberties just come in. Which doesn't seem to have picked up any comments yet. Pete or Toby, do you think you could have somebody take a look at this?
Yeah, I can take a look later.
Thanks, Toby. Otherwise, the recent ones all seem to have had some amount of conversation happening. Are there any in here that do need some conversation or further discussion? I'll close this back out and we'll jump back to the agenda. Toby, you've set yourself up for lightning talk on the 7th. Great. Let me just that up to the section here. We'll take a quick look at the download trends. Note that this is from the old Adopt OpenJDK, where they were able to host the OpenJ9 binaries. If we look just at the OpenJ9 trends, we see what we typically see. The slight down peak over the weekend, and then the tick back up as things come along. Is there anything further people want to look at here? All right, then we'll jump back to the agenda. And the Java 17 release. I open that up. We have the two items in the release plan still. So why don't we tackle the first one here, the null pointer exception? Do we have an update on this item?
The workaround for that was just merged into 29.1 about half an hour ago.
Excellent.
Yeah, the other workaround has been soaking in master for a few days, and the investigation into the true cause is still ongoing. One of the challenges that we've had is that problem seems to have gone into hiding, and it has been for no apparent reason. It's been particularly difficult to reproduce with tracing information again. So investigation on the true cause has been slowed somewhat, unfortunately. Still try to make progress there.
Okay, but this is no longer blocking the release.
No, the workaround is sort of independent of that now. But yeah, it's no longer blocking the release.
So we could remove the blocker label and move it forward to either 030 or 031. Given where we are in the 030 schedule, it might be better just to move it to 31.
Agree.
That leaves us then with the check cast on Java 17 issue.
While this seems a problem, it doesn't seem like a blocking problem to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. Just a comment about half an hour ago. The fact that these are not default JIT options that are required in order to reproduce the problem. I didn't see the other two updates here, so
So Babni, can you confirm that what you're saying is, and I'll state it back to make sure I'm understanding it, is that if the SCC is destroyed prior to running this test, we will fail every time, every second?
Yes, the first run will always pass, and the subsequent runs will always. Sorry, the first run will always pass, and the subsequent runs will always fail. So I'm guessing something is being fetched from the SCC in the subsequent runs to do which things are failing, and that some data which is being fetched is probably in a bad state, which leads to the seg fault.
And when you say default settings, do you mean default settings for the test or default settings for running the VM?
If we go up at the top, then there should be JVM options. So there is a seg fault in the description, and yeah, the JVM options. Yeah. So if you run with these settings, then you should be able to reproduce the failure every time after the first run.
Oh, that means it's not default JVM settings.
With the tests settings, the tests default settings. Yeah.
I think there's a bit of confusion in the comments. I don't think people are clear that it's the default test settings rather than the default JVM settings.
I had a comment to clarify that, and I think there was a new comment. I will respond to that as well. Yeah.
And this only fails with the disable async compilation, or with that set of options. We haven't seen this failure without.
Right. As soon as I remove that option, the test will always pass.
I mean, I agree this is a problem, and it should be investigated perhaps with higher priority than some of the other issues that we have, but I'm not sure that it's a blocker for 29.1. It's something that you could push out to 30. These are not default JIT options that we're running with here. So I don't think this needs to be made a blocker for 29.1. If we've got 30 coming up on its heels and 31 shortly thereafter.
Well, 31 would be JDK 18 only.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Is it? My hesitation here is if I look at the options, we're provoking a situation, and is this a situation we're likely to hit if we had run the system a little longer, i.e. in customer workloads, and we just happen to have the right options to trigger this? Or is there something, have we had a chance to look at the logs?
It's hard to say, I think, from the depth of the investigation that has happened so far. I think we have to dive into it to try to understand what's really going on here. I mentioned in that comment that I suspect that the disabling the async compilation is really just changing the timing of things and making it more likely to happen, as opposed to the problem somehow being triggered by that option. I suspect that it's already there. It's just that the right things happen in the right order for the failure to appear. So we need to get into the problem and understand, like, that's really the next thing, is to get more data on this.
So when this says with the options enable OSR and enable OSR on guard failure, and the other fix we put in was not to OSR on guard failure for method handle classes, Will these options still cause those method handle classes to OSR on failure?
No, because we actually physically remove the guard. Sorry, we physically remove the OSR transition in that case. To be honest with you, I'm not so OSR should be on by default. I'm not sure why we have that explicitly specified here. Oh, but maybe it's not enabled in a debug in the full speed debug mode. Maybe that's why. But regardless, that fix that we put in, that would that is physically removing any OSR transition on the failure side. So that option should not have an effect in that particular case.
Okay, so it's not a case where we fixed it with one thing and then re-enabled the broken behavior. Okay.
Right.
I'm wondering if this only occurs with count equals 1.
It sounds to me like we have a latent problem
Yep.
lurking here, and this flushes it out. But we don't have a good feeling on whether this is something that's likely to hit customers. Do we have?
Well, unless it's, I mean, if you're just going by the command line, customers are not using those options on the command line. And if the problem has never been seen without them, then it makes it less likely that a customer will see. But maybe to your point, we don't have enough information to say one way or the other. But,
yeah, that's where I was going. It's a little hard to say. And it is a unusual mode. Right? We're running in a debug mode to force redefinition. What would we need to know to be confident that this is not going to cause customers issues when we deploy a 17 build, or to be comfortable with proceeding without fixing this in the 29.1 release? Is there some investigation we can do to firm up that feeling that this is not going to hit customers?
well, if the problem is reproducible as Ebony suggests, meaning we can make it fail every time, we haven't tried applying any of our usual RAS techniques to it. We may be able to get to some understanding of at least what the problem is. Like all we see here is that it's crashing, but we don't really know why. We would have to spend a bit of time trying to understand why. This is on PowerPC too, isn't it? Power Linux. So
I can reproduce it on x86 as well. Yeah.
okay, that makes it a little bit easier from an access to machines standpoint. So yeah, I mean, that's what we would have to do. I mean, it's anything else is just pure speculation at this point. So maybe ask Nazim to take a peek at it today to see how far he can get with it. But yeah, I mean, barring someone rolling up their sleeves and getting into it, I don't know if we're going to be able to make much of a determination here.
Could you get Nazim to take a look at it?
Yeah, I'll ask.
Okay. And then while we're looking at the 29.1 release, we've been blocked on the UNB issues with multiple machines. Has that been resolved, or are we still blocked there?
I hope it's resolved. As of last night, it didn't hit us, so hopefully it stays that way. So we were able to get all our testing through last night.
Okay.
And I don't know if that was really a blocker. It would have slowed things down, but we can test internally.
So really what we're waiting for is a decision then on this issue. So the sooner we can get some clarification on whether that should be a go, no go. Seems like we're pretty close to being able to proceed with a release on this. Could we start doing the release processes on the assumption that this is not going to be a blocker issue, so that we're ready to go with the binaries and the testing?
Well, we'd have to tag with the release version, and then if we decided not to go ahead, then maybe we'd be releasing 0.29.2 instead, and never put 0.29.1 out there. Or do something else like make a 0.29.1a.
Why don't we give it a day to see if we can get some insight into this issue, and then if we can make a decision end of day tomorrow based on where we're at. Does that sound like
Yeah, that sounds reasonable to me.
Pete, you were going to say something else?
When I was looking at this, it wasn't clear to me, is this running a test that exists, or is this running a test that's under development?
This test is part of APR, which Eric had created. It hasn't been merged, so it is not included in the master merge.
Okay, so, thanks.
Yep.
That's the impression I got.
And this only fails on 17 with the OpenJDK method handles. It doesn't fail this releases?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yep. I haven't checked personally, so.
We tested on 11 and 8, and we didn't see any issues.
Can we get a link to the PR? Because that's the one thing I didn't find.
Just posting, I'm just responding to Mark's comment, which will include the link to the test and the PR.
Great, thanks.
All right.
So in theory, we should be doing the milestone builds for 0.30. So we might have a day or two before we're ready to do the final Java 17 build anyways, in terms of waiting.
Okay.
So it doesn't make any sense to rush into tagging it if we can't run the builds right away.
Yeah, agreed. Okay. So I guess that does bring us then to the 0.30 release. So you said the branch was created. We're ready for the milestone 1 builds.
That's correct. Tagged and ready to build 8 and 11. I didn't do anything for 17.
That makes sense.
That we want to put out a 17 milestone for 0.30 when we haven't done the 29.1 yet. Though maybe we do. Maybe after we do 29.1, we should go ahead and create that build for 0.30 and go through all the internal testing and make sure there's not other problems that we haven't seen already. Because we still need to be ready in January to release 17.
Yep. With the list of items that we have, sorry, I agree with you, Pete. I think that makes sense to get the build ready and to be prepared to take it forward once we've done the 0.29.1 release. with the list of items that we have in the 030 milestone, given that we've already branched, are there things in this milestone that should be moved out?
Lots of things. So I know Toby's done a pass-through. I'm hoping Darrow will do a pass-through.
Yes, I will.
And I think even Toby said on an earlier call that he was going to take a second pass at some point.
That would be good because it's still a long list. Anything else on the 030 release?
About the M2 start, I'm looking at that date, and December 15th is a Wednesday. I wonder if I was looking at the wrong month when we wrote the 15th, and that was meant to be the 13th, which is the Monday and after the weekend testing.
Makes more sense.
That doesn't give us very much time. Less than 2 weeks away. But I think with lots of people being on vacation towards the end of December and beginning of January, that we need to finalize this release quickly.
Yeah, I agree. Getting it done early because there won't be a lot of people around to review and merge. And that brings us then to the Java 18 release, 031. It's being split from mainline JDK on December the 9th. Pete, do we have tentative dates for the rest of our schedule?
I haven't set any dates yet. I think it would be like the last week of January where we do M1, but I think we can wait and play it by ear, see where we're at. I guess I wrote some stuff, but I put it under the JDK 18 next bullet point. So we do have the JEP 416 enabled. We don't have the absolute latest code. My understanding is the latest code doesn't build anymore, but since there hasn't been like a tagged build from OpenJDK, we haven't tried to bring that into our staging branch yet. But when we do, it's not going to compile, I don't think, because of the foreign function interface. There's been some incompatible changes that we have to catch up with. I'm concerned about JEP 400, the UTF-8 by default. It seems to me I saw some failures go by related to that JEP, and I'm not sure if anybody's looking at them. And I was trying to find them, and I couldn't even find them this morning. So I think there may be work to do, but I'm not sure.
Did we not already address those failures?
Maybe we did, and that's why I couldn't find them.
Okay. Like Jason opened a pull request to fix the startup with non-standard encodings.
So we had 116 Sanity OpenJDK failures a week or two ago. We were working on creating issues to track some of those, and we're going to exclude the FFI failures. It looked to me like Babneet still needed to approve that PR and was maybe still working on additional issues. And I'm not sure if recent changes have taken down that 116 failure number. So I'm running another build now to see where we're at, if that situation has improved. But we're going to need to look at more than just the foreign function interface failures, I think.
Review Cheng's PR. Do we also exclude all the tests which need to be fixed, or do we let them fail?
If we have issues to track them, I think we can exclude the failing tests because otherwise it's a lot harder to triage and notice new failures. If there's a lot of tests that are failing every time you run.
So I think I still have to. I haven't created a PR to exclude them, so I will create something similar to what Cheng has done.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. So my build did just finish. So the new build has 118 failures. I was hoping that enabling JEP 416 might have removed some of the failures, but it hasn't done so. So it'd be interesting to see where we stand once we exclude all the failures that are covered by other issues.
Yeah, sounds like we've got a bit of work to do to get those builds cleaned up.
So do we think that, Bebney, do you think most of these failures are due to incubator JEPs?
Some of them are coming from how we have implemented OpenJDK method handle support.
Are these tests that we've excluded for 17 that just haven't gotten excluded for 18 yet?
I think these are new features, or somewhat. They've added assertions. OpenJDK method handles have assertions, and our implementation doesn't work exactly similar to how OpenJDK method handles works in their JDK, because vtables and other itables are work differently in theirs. So due to which the assertion code that they have expects something that OpenJDK will give, and in our case we will return something that our J9 will give, and what our J9 gives is not accepted by that assertion code. So we just have to tweak that assertion code so that we return what it expects. But I think Jack has been working on one of the failures which should fix majority of those assertions. I think he has a draft here or a commit ready. He should be testing it, and I'm guessing he should have a PR open by the end of this week, and it should fix, I think, more than a quarter of those failures.
I do see in the list there's a file encoding test failure, and I wonder if that might be related to the UTF-8 JEP.
I haven't tried all the failures yet. I only looked at maybe half of them and open issues for them. So I still have to look at the remaining ones and open new issues if there are failures which haven't been seen for. It is related to the UTF-8 JEP. I will most probably create a new GitHub issue for it.
Is there other things that we want to tackle for JDK 18? So then we will move through the rest of our agenda. I don't see Shelley on the call, so I'm not sure that we have an adopt update today. Skip forward. Adam, is there an update on the infrastructure?
Yeah, that UNB pipe issue seems to be resolved as of last night, according to Pete. So still waiting to hear back from UNB to confirm that. So that's good. Hopefully it stays that way. The Artifactory disk space has been increasing again. We're up about 10% over the last month or so. And just looking at the percentages between UNB and the OSU and the platform coverage that UNB runs, seems to be split across all the platforms. So I don't think it's specific to a certain platform. So I don't know why it's increasing, but I think I asked Pete last week and he wasn't sure either. I'm not sure if we're having more failures overall or what.
No, I wouldn't say there's been a lot of failures.
I think I looked at the cleanups and they seem to be working fine, so I have to keep an eye on it. If it gets any higher, we'll have to look more closely at it.
I was thinking about the AOT job that runs twice a week, but it normally runs green. But I guess that's, it used to only run once a week. Maybe there's more builds now because it runs twice a week.
Assuming it has the number that cleanup, not just time-based, it shouldn't affect it. Anyway, we'll keep an eye on it.
I mean, we're still okay at 90 so long as it doesn't keep climbing to 100.
Yeah. Over Christmas.
Oh, we will be adding more builds for the upcoming releases, for the 030 release.
Yeah, but that's not new, right? Like we should be cleaning up. The old one should get cleaned up.
Yep.
As we go. Like the whole, everything is set to 45 days, right? We'll keep an eye on it.
Thanks, Adam. Devin, is there an update on the Cmake migration?
Nothing new there, really.
Arias, is there an update on JIT server?
So we merged the code for the AOT server-side caching in 030. So I haven't tested yet performance-wise, but I think it's good. I'll do testing in the coming days. That's it.
Thank you to whoever updated the microjit meeting schedule. Toby, is there anything you want to call out on the snapshot restore work?
Yeah, so there's a new PR out to add some support for users to register pre and post snapshot hooks. There's also a bit of a change in behavior in that same PR to kind of make it more user-friendly. So instead of throwing an exception if you're not running the right CRU enabled build, or if you don't have CRU installed on the machine, it'll simply just return false if there's any issue with libcru on the machine, and you can query the type of failure with another API call. So those are the latest updates there.
Just checking if Jack is on the call. Don't see him. Skip over the Project Loom update.
So for that stuff, there's a lot of code, a lot of Loom related code added to Javlang thread. So Jason was working on an experiment to see if we could port the OpenJDK Javlang thread to J9. The preliminary results show that it is possible, so he was able to start the VM and run some testing. I think now he's running more extensive testing just to make sure we're addressing all the cases. And currently, Jack is making some progress on the actual continuation implementation. So this is the mounting and unmounting virtual threads off of Java threads. So I think the Loom effort in general will be a lot easier if we can use the OpenJDK Java thread implementation, just because there's a lot of new code added there to support the Java level scheduler. And so in order to do it without that right now, you essentially have to hack up a bunch of places just to get the JCL code to compile, which is what Jack is doing right now. But I think it would help if we kind of unified that part of the implementation.
Yeah, that makes sense. The place to watch is the monitoring APIs around thread states, and I believe there's some JVM-TI calls around thread states as well, just to make sure that we're reporting the correct information.
By monitoring, do you mean
states.
JMX?
Yes.
Okay. Are you aware of any optimizations that are specific to our DevLang thread implementation that we'll need to take a look at as well?
I don't have the Java side of that code paged into my head, and I believe the J9 VM thread piece of that should be independent. So I might need a hidden field injected somewhere to tie the two pieces together. But
yeah, so OpenJDK uses EE-top as their like hidden field there for the native thread. So what Jason did was he essentially used that as the VM thread field, and everything seemed to work. I'm not sure if this is going to mess with profilers who are actually expecting this to be a native thread. There might be an issue there that we have to look at.
Cheng, do we have an update on Panama?
In terms of API, I'm currently investigating the latest API changes coming through in Java 18 because they blocked the Java 18's builds. And this is the second incubator in FFI. But it turns out there's a bunch of changes coming to how to deal with the function descriptor and Boolean type, and in terms of how to access the data in a class. So I need to evaluate how we can deal with that to make sure the existing code already merged in phase 1, how to make sure it works with both Java 17 and Java 18. Yeah, still working at it. That's about it.
Thanks, Cheng. You can skip over the monitoring strategy. Pete, is there any update on the sensitive language efforts?
No, it's with Shelley. I wonder if it needs to stay in the minutes.
Happy to remove it if we're state. So Daryl dropped, so I'm assuming that there's no update on the Mac M1 efforts. Is there anything else that we need to discuss this week? All right, then thank you everybody, and we'll close the meeting here.
Thank you.